Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Inshallah, today we'll be continuing with the verses from Surah Qaf, Surah number 50. Last week we covered the verses in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about, the people and how the closeness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to people. And then we also discussed the verses in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about. We also discussed the verses in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked about, the fact that everybody has angels, and the fact that everybody has angels and they're being held accountable for all the different actions, for all the different things that they've done, that these deeds, what's been going on with you has been written down. So we've concluded that section. Today we'll be covering ayahs number 19 through 22. In ayah number 19, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ بِالْحَقِّ ذَلِكَ مَا كُنْتَ مِنْهُ تَحِيدُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the translator translates here, that the trance of death will bring the truth with it. That is what you tried to escape. And what's interesting here is that first Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَاءَتْ. Ja'at means to come or to arrive, okay? وَجَاءَتْ, what came, what was arriving? Sakratul maut. Sakra comes from the root of sukra, meaning something to be like intoxicated. For example, in another part of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the day of judgment. He says when the day of judgment comes, the day of judgment will be so intense, so intense that people will be walking around as if they're intoxicated, but they're not actually intoxicated. So it actually has this meaning of being overwhelmed, okay? Has this meaning of being intense, being overwhelmed. So sakratul maut, meaning the pains of death or the trance of death or the overwhelmingness of death approaching. When death comes to a person, that person does not have the same level of consciousness. They become a bit incapacitated. Like they're thinking about the death. They're thinking about what's happening at that moment. And there's a narration that about Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu was on his deathbed, it said that Arsala ila Aisha, he called to Aisha, he called for Aisha to come. فَلَمَّا دَخَلَتْ عَلَيْهِ قَالَتْ, when Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha came, she said, هَذَا كَمَا قَالَ شَاعِرٌ. She decided to quote a poem, okay? She decided to quote a poem. And think about Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she was so well versed in many different things, but she was also a poet. So she decided to quote a poem. She said, إِذَا خَشْرَجَتْ يَوْمًا وَضَاقَ بِهَا الصَّدْرُ. Now, the thing about the word hasrajat is that it's not a normal word that is used in Arabic, but it's a word that is used often in poetry. So she says, إِذَا hasrajat يَوْمًا, that on the day when the soul is trying to depart, when the soul is trying to escape, when the soul is trying to leave from the body, daqa biha sadr, that the chest becomes constrained, the chest becomes tight. Then when she said this, فقال Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, هَلَا قُلْتِ كَمَا قَالَ اللَّهِ. He said, no, you should have said what the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you should have said what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. And he quoted this ayah, وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ بِالْحَقِّ ذَلِكَ مَا كُنْتَ مِنْهُ تَحِيدُ. Then he quoted this ayah and he said that when the trance or the difficulties of death come, it will bring the truth with it, and this is what you try to escape. He said it's better for you. It's better for you to quote the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was on his deathbed as well, he will tell Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha he had a bucket of water there. So what he would do was فَجَعَلَ يُدْخِلُ يَدِهِ فِي الْمَاءِ. He would put his hands in the water, فَيَسْمَحُ بِهَا وَجْهَهُ, and he will wash his face. Okay, this is why he's on his deathbed. This is when he was close to passing away. So he will wash his face with the water, and then he would say, "La ilaha illallah." There is no God worthy of worship except for Allah. And then he said, "Inna lil mauti sakarat," and then he will say that indeed there's hardship, there's pain when it comes to this death, when it comes to death. In the previous verses that before we got here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala discussed, his knowledge of everything and how everybody will be held accountable and the way, like in terms of this life, that there's these two angels and they'll be writing down the deeds that a person has done. And they'll write down the good deeds and they'll write down the bad deeds, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is closer to us than our jugular vein. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking a lot about, had told us a lot about his knowledge and all the things that he knows. And now he is saying, now the transition is that now death has come. Now you're dying. And so sometimes, like when we think about, death, when we talk about the hereafter, we just talk about it after the aftermath of death, that it had already happened. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is detailing the process of death itself. And so now the beginning of the ayah says, وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ. So like the word ja'a, when it comes with the preposition of that or be, when it comes with that preposition, it means to bring something. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَاءَتْ سَكْرَةُ الْمَوْتِ بِالْحَقِّ. So what did it bring? Bil al-haq. It brought the truth. And what does this mean? So there are different ways that the scholars actually interpret what this means. So the first one group of scholars say that it means that without a doubt. Okay, so it means that the pains of death came without a doubt. The majority of scholars take the meaning of ja'a with ba, having the meaning of bringing something, so meaning that the pains of death shall bring the truth. This is when it brings the realities of the situation. This is when we're truly awakened, meaning that people are asleep, not realizing, like in this life, going through this dunya, being asleep, not realizing the true aspects of the dunya, the true aspects of how we're supposed to live in this life. Everybody's just kind of doing whatever they want to do, living their life and being in heedlessness and ghafla, or living not according to how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked us to live. But on that day when you die, then you'll really see the realities of this life and what you should have been spending your life in doing. So that is what is said there. And then the last portion of this ayah, it says, ذَلِكَ, that is, مَا كُنْتَ, what you try to, minhu, what you try to tahid, what you try to escape from it. Okay, that is what you try to escape from. The word hada yahidu, it actually means to try to avoid something, to try to sidestep something. And so this is saying that this is something that we've constantly tried to avoid, which is death. Whether it be actually physically trying to escape death, which we all know is not possible, but there are people who do, they try to escape death, or whether it be even just avoiding the conversation of death, period. That there are many times where, these conversations will come up, or someone will bring it up and everybody's like, no, we don't want to talk about that right now. This is way too deep. This is way too scary. It's way too this. It's way too that. So there's a lot of times where these conversations, the way that we try to escape death has manifest. So the scholars have a question here that who is being addressed here? So according to Ibn Abbas and some other Sahaba, they say that this is specifically addressing the disbelievers. But according to the majority of scholars, majority of Sahaba, and majority of people the majority of muhaddith and things of that nature, they say that this is actually addressing everyone, that these verses, verse number 19, 20, 21, 22, all the verses we'll cover today, that these verses are actually addressing everyone. And it's talking to a believer as well, because a believer as well is nervous about death. Like someone who believes, just because you're a believer doesn't mean that, you think you have it in the bag. It doesn't mean that you think that, everything is done, sealed, I'm going to Jannah, that's it, khalas, like I don't have anything to worry about. Rather, a person who is a true believer also worries and is nervous about death. And we see this with Uthman bin Affan radiallahu ta'ala anhu, that whenever he would, and he's a Sahaba that spent time with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was one of the Khalifas, one of the four rightly guided Khalifas. So we see this with Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, when he would pass by a grave site or a graveyard, he would kind of lose his ability to function. He will be worried about, what will happen to him when he passes away. He was very worried about his hereafter, and that's how the Sahaba were. They were very worried about their hereafter. And so here we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing everyone. Now that the person has passed away, now it's time for now this is where the moment when the person passes away, when a person is going through the death process, then this is the moment that the judgment starts for them. That a lot of times we think about the day of judgment and we just think about only the gathering of everybody, but this is where the afterlife starts. The afterlife starts when the person has passed away. And now the next verse will talk about the starting of the day of judgment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when nufikha fi suduri, and the trumpet will be sounded. ذَلِكَ يَوْمُ الْوَعِيدِ. This is the day you were warned about. And what's interesting here is that in the verse number 19 and verse number 20, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala used the past tense of the verbs. So in verse number 19, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَاءَتْ, and that's the past tense, that it came, or it arrived. And then here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says وَنُفِخَ, meaning that it was sounded, it was blown into. And so what's interesting is that in terms of language, there's the more basic or elementary level of language where you have to follow all the rules, right? There's every single thing has a rule and you follow all the rules. But then there's a more higher level, more eloquent level of language where that level is where the conventions of normal grammar rules have been broken. And that usually happens in like poetry and things of that nature. And so here you see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing kind of a rule that's kind of broken, because in the future is when the trumpet will be sounded, right? And for us, we're still alive, but we're reading these verses in the past tense. So we know that these things are things that apply to us as well. So they are supposed to happen in the future as well. And so what's happening here is that this is very common in the Quran, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will talk about the future of something, but he uses the past tense of the verb because that is illustrating how certain it is that thing will happen. It's illustrating how certain it is that the day of judgment is going to come. It's illustrating how certain it is that we will all pass away, that we will all die. How certain it is that the trumpet will be blown. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ, in a narration, he was sitting with his Sahaba and he was telling them. He says, he asked them. He says, "Kayfa an'am?" He says, "How can I live how can anybody expect me to live in luxury? Not like enjoying the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but more so living in like obliviousness, like just doing whatever I want to do, acting however I want to act, not being aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not being aware of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked me to do, not doing the things that God has asked me to do." He said, how can you expect me to live like that? وَصَاحِبُ الْقَرْنِ قد التم القرن وحنى جنحته وانتظرا أن يؤذن له. He says that how can you expect me to live in this luxury, being relaxed as if everything is great, when the angel that is supposed to be blowing the horn, when the one who has been given the horn, meaning Israfil, and we have that from other narrations, when he's the one who's supposed to be given the horn, has placed the horn to his lips and he has raised it to his forehead, so meaning raised the horn, so he's ready, and he's like just waiting for the signal. He's waiting to be commanded to blow it. How can I be preoccupied with anything else outside of my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked me to do, knowing that the day of judgment is so near, knowing that the trumpet will be blown soon. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues in the next ayah, in ayah number 21. He says, وَجَاءَتْ كُلُّ نَفْسٍ مَعَهَا سَائِقٌ وَشَهِيدٌ, that each person will arrive by an angel, will arrive attended by an angel to drive him on, and another to bear witness. وَجَاءَتْ كُلُّ نَفْسٍ, every single person will come. Every single person will come, but they will not come alone. Meaning that you're not going to come with your friends and your posse and your family. They won't come alone. They will come ma'aha. They will be accompanied by two angels. And what are these two angels? The first one is sa'iq. A sa'iq is someone who basically is driving and pushing you along. So they will come with somebody who will be driving them and pushing them along. Was shahid, and a person and the angel that will bring their book, the angel that will bear witness to the deeds, the angel that will bear witness to the actions that they did in this world. And in ayah number 22, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ كُنْتَ فِي غَفْلَةٍ مِّنْ هَذَا فَكَشَفْنَا عَنْكَ غِطَاءَكَ فَبَصَرُكَ الْيَوْمَ الْحَدِيدِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you paid no attention to this day. You paid no attention. That we gave you so many warnings in this life. We gave you so many warnings in this life, and you paid no attention to this day. But today, we have removed your veil, and your sight is sharp. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ, without a doubt, كُنْتَ فِي غَفْلَةٍ, you were in the heedlessness. You were inside of it. Ghafla means to be not aware, to be disconnected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to just kind of walk like you're in the dark, right? So, but you have the ability to like turn on the light. You just decide not to. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you were fi ghaflatin, you were in fi, the preposition of fi means to be inside of something, to be immersed into something. So you were inside of ghafla, this is showing the extent of how heedless you were. Min hada, okay, from like you were basically, you weren't even aware, you weren't even paying attention to today. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَكَشَفْنَا عَنْكَ غِطَاءَكَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَكَشَفْنَا, we opened up, we removed. Okay? Gita'ak means like a curtain. Gita'a is a curtain. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Gita'ak, your curtain. Meaning the veils that you put on yourself, the blinders that you put on yourself, this is the day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has removed it. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't put those blinders there. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't blind you. You blinded yourself. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove it that day. فَبَصَرُكَ الْيَوْمَ حَدِيدٌ. And on this day, your insight, your eyesight, your insight will be sharp. Meaning fabasaruka, meaning you will be very, very aware of what is happening on this day. There's no way that you will be confused by any means. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this word hadid actually means iron. But here it also has a meaning of like the tip, a sharp sword. Okay, so here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that on this day everybody will see everything for what it really is. The scholars say that the removing of the curtains will happen in 4 stages throughout a person's lifetime or throughout history, basically. The first stage is that إِذْ كَانَ فِي بَطْنِ أُمِّهِ فَوُلِدَ, that when you are in the womb of your mother. So the removing of the curtains is more so talking about exposing the true realities of things, exposing the true realities of life, exposing the true realities of your past or of what you've done. And this is in 4 stages. It كَانَ فِي بَطْنِ أُمِّهِ فَوُلِدَ, that when a person was in the womb of their mother, then they were born. That exposed the reality of life, that you have to live life. وَإِذْ كَانَ فِي الْقَبْرِ فَنُشِرَ, that when a person was used to be in their grave and then they were resurrected from their grave, now that exposes the reality of the beginning of the day of judgment. وَقْتُ الْأَرْضِ فِي الْقِيَامَةِ, and the time in which when you have to go and stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that exposes the realities of hisab, the realities of being taken into account for your actions. And then the last one is nuzul al-wahyi wa tahammul al-risala, the revelation exposed the true reality of life. And so what we're seeing here is that what are we to do with all of this? What are we to do with all of this information about the hereafter, the day of judgment? These ayat are brought to us for us to take heed of it. These ayat are brought to us for us to take it and actually use it as a reminder for ourselves, and use it for us to do good in this world so that we can get the ultimate mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hereafter. In the hadith that I quoted before, where the Prophet says to the Sahabas, Kayfa an'amu wa sahibul qarni qad iltaqa al qarn, like how can I be relaxing, how can I be chilling, how can I just live my life in any kind of way when the one who's been given the responsibility of blowing the horn has his lips on the horn? horn, meaning the angel has their lips on the horn. The end of this narration, that the Sahabas, they were so shook by what the Prophet said. They were so shook by what the Prophet has said, that this angel is just waiting. The day of judgment is so near. The end of the world is so near that that the angel is just waiting for the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to blow in the trumpet. That what they said to the Prophet, what they replied to the Prophet, they said, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, Kayfa Nakul, what should we do? What should we say? And the Prophet says, Kulu, he tells them, say, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. He says that, so Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. I'm good with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wa ni'mal wakil, and his favor is wa ni'mal wakil, his favor is and my trust is in him. I put my trust in him. And they all got up and they said, فَقَالَ الْقَوْمُ, for all of them said together, فَحَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. That what we should do in these times is that we should be people who are putting our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and who are trying to do the best for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when we get overwhelmed with these thoughts, and we get overwhelmed with the realities of the hereafter, that we do our adhkar, we increase in our dhikr, we increase in our salawat, we increase in our salah and our nafil to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us this is for us to take heed of. But what about the people who don't take heed of it? What about the people who don't use this as a warning, who just ignore it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Asmi' bihim wa abasir yawma ya'tunana. He says, listen and look at their situation on the day that they come to us. And then in Surah Sajda, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Law tara idal mujrimuna nakisu ru'usihim inda rabbihim. That those who were criminals, those who didn't do good in this world, those who were criminals, that they will come and their heads, their necks, their heads will be hanging in shame in front of their Lord. And they will say, Rabbana, our Lord, absarna wa sami'na, we see now, we can see it now, we see now, and we hear. Okay? فَرْجِعْنَا نَعْمَلْ صَالِحًا إِنَّا مُوقِنُونَ. They said that send us back to the previous life, we'll do good deeds. Send us back to the previous life, we'll do good deeds. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us people that take from His signs, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes us people that don't wait until the day of judgment to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send us back to do good deeds, whether we do our good in this life and we are bestowed with the ultimate mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I pray that those who are not in good health, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cures them, that those of us who are in good health, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keeps us in good health. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes things easy for everybody, and that we all benefit from what we learned here today. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Jazakumullahu khairan.